next question that I have, next follow-up. You were talking about, you know, people and how they explain their past relationships. What have you noticed in the types of people who explain their past relationships from a victim perspective versus the type of people who explain their types of relationship from, I guess, an honest perspective? Like, what types of people are they? Am I
Yeah, I think I understand. So if someone is when they talk about their relationships, are really focused on being wronged by the other person. Uh, you know, as colloquially known, past behavior predicts future behavior. So if someone they have this pattern of describing their past romantic relationships in that negative way, there's a that's going to be a good estimate of how they are likely to be in the relationship with you, right? And so being able to, because that's what we're all trying to do, is this person a potential partner? Is there longevity here? Do I want to commit to this person? Do I want to engage in the risk? Well, how do I use the data that's available to me to start making that determination? And one of those things is how that person talks about important people in their life. Do they have a growth mindset? Are they learning about are they learning about themselves relative to their relationships? How are they using the information and their experiences to better themselves?
Now, you mentioned, how somebody speaks about their past is how they're going to show up, I guess, in their current relationship. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, it's again basing it on what we know in psychology is past behavior is most predictive of future behavior, and so how how do they describe themselves in these past relationships? How do they describe their partner? Do they take responsibility? Do they acknowledge their contribution to the problems? And have they made steps to be better in relationshiping? Those are the kinds of questions or the kind of information you're trying to gather when you're trying to decide whether someone's a suitable partner.
So, if somebody explains their past relationship from a victim perspective,
That's
are
right.
they looking, do you believe that in the present relationship that they're in, they're trying to at least subconsciously look to be the victim in every single situation? Am I following you in that sense?
What I would say it a little differently is that they are less inclined to take responsibility
Listen,
for their contributions to the problems.
interesting. So it's almost as if you are, I guess, dating somebody new and they're already explaining their past in such a manner,
Yeah,
it's almost like as if like, okay, well, if they're already explaining their past in this manner, if I get into a relationship with this person, they're going to be reluctant to take responsibility in this relationship, or they're more likely to be reluctant to take
that's right.
responsibility.
That's right. Of course, we can't absolutely know, but again, people are trying to make a decision about is this a an opportunity for a lifelong commitment, right?
Hmm.
And that's a big decision. That's a real big decision. So uh, um, uh, how do you use the data available to you to make an informed decision? I heard someone say that they'll start using the TSA flight check membership. That if someone has TSA flight check approval, do you know what I'm
Yeah,
referring
yeah.
to? They're probably golden because the federal government has already done the in-depth research about that person.
That's funny.
Right? It's kind of like the modern version of someone's FICO score.
That's
You're trying
funny.
to you're getting this piece of information. And I thought that that was really just ingenious. Uh, but again, there are other risk factors. So, for example, we know that people who are from different cultures have a higher risk for divorce. People where there's a significant age gap between the couple is a risk factor for divorce. If in heterosexual relationships, if the wife's parents are divorced, then that's a risk factor. If the husband's parents are divorced, that is not a risk factor. But if both parents are divorced, that has a synergistic risk factor. So every relationship, all relationships have risk factors. A couple who go into a relationship with longevity are the ones who acknowledge those risk factors and are actively looking to manage those risks, because it's not possible to have a relationship without any risks.
I totally agree. And the first thing that you said couples of different cultures.
Yes.
So they both have to be of different cultures.
Well, presumably, if one's not of the same culture, they're different cultures. So, if someone's like from a Latino culture and someone's from like an Asian culture, they may have different ways of perceiving how relationships work, or different ways of expressing. Even if they're the same values, they may express those differently. And what couples tend to do is get couples who show up in my office, I should say, get very rigid around their what's familiar to them and want to protect what's familiar to them, and then somehow communicate to their partner that their way isn't as appropriate.
Yes, and I can definitely see how friction can come about in that type of situation. Partner A representing their culture and their values and how they were raised, and partner B doing the exact same thing, both
Yes.
being reluctant to change. I can definitely see friction.
And I would add, even it can be sometimes it can be just in difference in class. So if someone
Mm.
grew up in, like, I grew up on welfare in central Pennsylvania, right? And that uh, um, culture, there's a culture associated with Appalachia, right? And that culture is very different if than people who grew up in a much more affluent situation. So they can be the same race, but culturally they're different, and there may be conflicts that emerge because of those differences.
Absolutely, I can definitely see that. Wow. Now I have one more question with regards like the victim mindset. With your experience with your clients, with the people who come in, the couples that come in to speak with you, how long does it take, in your opinion? I mean, of course, there's not a for sure number or for sure amount of years or months, but how long does it take somebody to unwind that victim mindset? Like, have you had like a
Mm.
client or a couple, when you saw or noticed that one partner was had a victim mindset, and like how many sessions did it take? Sorry, how many sessions did it take for like that person to, I guess, become anew or have a different perspective? Is it
Yeah.
is it something that's short or it takes years?
It really differs on there's so many factors, right, that contribute to it. You're using the term victim mindset, and there is some research that's suggesting that there is almost a victimhood personality type, uh, where a person
Check
is
out today.
more,
Is
less
marriage right
likely
for
to take
you?
responsibility, or projects onto other people the responsibility for their own unhappiness.